guys, as we are here, I don't, and we are just waiting a little bit to have more people here. I have maybe a question that I would love if you guys could answer me. It's just a question for us to understand more about the community and how we can help. And I was wondering if, for example, on your personal experience, how did you arrive to deep funding? Did you start it by coming to a town hall, learning a little bit, and then deciding how you wanted to participate? Or did you actually come with a specific goal immediately, started participating, and then initiated on the town hall?
Well, I can say for Photrek, we actually learned about SingularityNet through Cardano, and I think it's at least 2 years ago. It might even be 3 years ago that um, SingularityNet sponsored a round in the Catalyst program, and we won an award in that round and met some of the like Matt Ickle in particular was kind of a mentor for us in getting to know the SingularityNet community. And so then we proposed one and launched two apps from Deep Fund One.
Okay, so you got basically through a specific action, through Catalyst proposal, and then you continued building through yeah, through deep funding directly, right?
Right.
And I think Barry also came here through Track, right, Barry?
Right.
Alfonso, nice to meet you. I think I haven't seen you before, but it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. I came here invited by Barry.
Okay.
Oh, excellent.
Nice. So it's
Right.
your first experience, right?
Yes.
I hope it's an enjoyable one. So now we have a good reason today to do the first slide where we present a little bit about what it is deep funding because we have someone new to do that, right? Welcome, and I hope you enjoy it, Alfonso. And thank
Thank
you
you.
also for your interaction. All right, I think we can start. I'll start here with just a little context on deep funding for anyone who's new and for people, of course, also watching later on YouTube as we are recording the session. And let's go. I hope you all can see my screen. And welcome everyone to the Deep Funding Town Hall. A town hall where we basically reunite ourselves as a community to discuss deep funding, the future, discuss as a community, get to know each other. And today we have a kind of packed agenda once again, which is very positive. First, we start with this little explanation of what is deep funding. Then we go to some quick news and updates from deep funding, from Jan, from myself. We have a lot going on deep funding. Afterwards, we're going to have two major events, let's say. One is the workshop by Photrek for reputation and voting weight system. And the other one is the Deep Funding Community website, where AO is going to present it more in depth and trying to get feedback from the community, as well as of ways to improve it. What is deep funding? It's the question you might be asking if you're a first timer. And Deep Funding is basically a decentralized grants program tasked with the goal of funding projects and initiatives that are actually beneficial to SingularityNET. And then we go to the question, what is SingularityNET, or what is the goal of SingularityNET? And our goal here is to create a democratic, decentralized, and beneficial AGI. So any project that is good to help us reach this goal is welcome. Any idea that improves SingularityNET and deep funding. In terms of values, what are the values we stand for in this community? Those are our four pillars: openness, creativity, collaboration, and kindness. And if you fit in well within these ideas and within these values, then this is the perfect place for you. Deep Funding is a community-run program, so the community ourselves have a great saying in Deep Funding. And by coming here, you have a chance to contribute in several different ways with your proposals, with voting for the best ideas to reach this goal of a beneficial AGI. You can review the proposals, give feedback, help proposers improve on what they're doing to come back with better ideas in the next round. You can be part of the discussion and of the governance of deep funding here in these calls, in the open DF All Ends call as well. And finally, as well, Deep funding is run by the community through circles, right? Circles with different purposes, such as marketing, events, that is this circle here, review circle that execute important functions. And by participating, by engaging, you too can become one of these members of these circles and help in the execution of deep funding. As for the town hall, this is the place for the community to come to discuss everything related to deep funding, to learn as well, ask questions. So if you have any question at any point, feel free to raise your hand, feel free to participate. This is pretty open. And of course, we'd love to hear from the community. We welcome all kinds of presentations of awarded projects, of topics that we feel it's important to discuss, as long as they are, of course, in the context of deep funding, of AGI, of SingularityNET. And you can also host breakout rooms about any topic you'd like to discuss on a more, I don't know, comfortable space, let's say, with a smaller audience, if you feel that's better for you. And now for today, before diving deeper with the topics, let's maybe advance with something else that is very important. As you know, we have the deep funding round 5 coming hopefully soon, but more than that, we have proposed changes. There was a blog post, there was also a PowerPoint presentation that I'll share here with you. And we are currently gathering feedback on these changes, on these proposed changes from the community. And this has been well advertised. We had the previous town hall 2 weeks ago, where we really dove deep into this change. We asked questions. We have also the open all hands from last week, where these changes were discussed with the community and where everyone is free to ask changes. And right now, today, the 3rd of October, is the last day for submitting feedback. So this is like the last reminder for the community to come here and to make sure your opinion is heard. I'll share the link for this PowerPoint in the description as well, in the chat, I mean, for you guys to assess if you don't have it. But it was also well advertised by the marketing circle. So hopefully everyone was able to read it and to give their own opinions. That being said, Jan, do you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
Yes, now you mention it, I just wrote down a few things. Maybe not all new. So you all know that we're working on, or the work group is working on changes in deep funding round 5, led by Rafael Prezi, who's not here tonight, I think, who has well-deserved leave this week. So we created a blog on that, and there's a survey asking for your input on which of the things you actually like or which you don't like. It's a little bit of work to go through it in the survey, but I think it's good use of your time, basically, at least from my perspective, but you'll be the judge of that. So yeah, I hope to get a lot of feedback on the desired or the anticipated changes on deep funding round 5. That's one thing. Another thing, which is important, is we just published a blog on the community.deepfunding.ai website by the marketing circle, where we are recruiting for a few new roles in the marketing circle. So we're looking for a marketing lead, actually, who can coordinate the work. We're looking for some new people on top of the people already there that can help work on different kinds of content, like video, images, infographics, whatever you can think of. So really creative stuff. And we are looking for somebody who can take the lead in content creation. So somebody that has or wants to acquire an in-depth knowledge of everything related to deep funding, all the processes, rules, funding routes, etc., and can translate that in a way that it is useful and understandable to our community. So you can think of content on the website, which is now also under revision. We did a lot of work on the website, but I think the plain content, like information, informing people who come there for the first time, really needs some work. So that's an attention point already, with or without these new roles. But we can also create guides to help people. We can create FAQs. We have to go through the website time and again, and from the big chunks to the smallest tooltip, make sure that whenever somebody comes to the website, they have a great experience, even if they're there for the first time. And that requires a lot of attention, but also a lot of knowledge on the rules and etc. So yeah, we're hoping for some new blood in the marketing team, because they have their hand full. It's not like we're replacing the whole team or anything. We just want to have additional people, because there's a lot of work to do, and it's very important work for the success of Deep Funding. So that was my second update. The third update is we have RFPs on our website, which is a new funding a way of getting funded. They are not open yet for submission. They have been there for a while we are adding other RFPs. The RFPs are pretty technical. They are related to OpenCog Hyperon. There are a bunch of new ones, also on PLN, pattern matching. So I have a bunch of them lying around that I need to enter. I hope I will get around to that tomorrow, or otherwise pretty soon after. Then they still won't be open for submission. That might take a week or 2 weeks, I don't know, for us or the internal team to tweak the final parts of those RFPs. And then I expect they will be opened for submission, and anybody can submit a proposal. They will be assessed by our internal team, because they're very technical, and you need a lot of very specific OpenCog Hyperon related knowledge to make a good assessment of them. If you're interested, please have a look in the coming days. Subscribe to our newsletter and mark that you would like to stay informed of new proposals. That way you will be sure that whenever there's a new RFP released, you will get a mail and get updated. So these are a few things, probably more things going on, but I think that's it for now.
All right. Thank you so much, Jan. Also, if anyone has any questions or anything, feel free to raise your hand and speak your mind. If not, let's move forward. And I think this time we'll move forward first with Joanna and for Terek and Igor, maybe, probably. I think he'll be presenting as well with the reputation and voting weight system design.
Great, thank you, Rafael. Thank you, everyone. So we are here to talk about our Deep Fund 4 proposal regarding an RFP design for an upgraded reputation and voting weight system. So this is in collaboration with Trust Level. Unfortunately, Dominic is quite ill today and can't join us, but I'm here with Barry and Igor from our FOTREC team. So we just wanted to have kind of like a conversation to gather some input from you on how you think we should go about this RFP. So we have a couple guiding questions, but I'll give you a little bit of an introduction, especially for those of you that aren't aware. So we've won a couple proposals in the past to support Deep Funding with how they calculate their reputation and voting weight. So the way as a community member, your voting weight is measured within Deep Funding is a combination of a score that you accumulate by engaging on their proposal portal and being active in the community and whatnot, and then a square root of your AJAX holding. And so in the previous round, we built a tool where we gathered information, data from the proposal portal. So that's where you go engage, comment, like, dislike, engage on the proposals within that portal, and then you get a score based on that behavior, and then the voting portal. But this is just limited to the data that's available from these two portals. So the next step with this system is how do we create a system where we can gather data across various sources that could be pertinent to enhancing your voting weight. And how can we have a layer or a UI where you can go kind of configure these scores? So I'll share my screen with a very high level diagram. Oh, sorry, Rafael, may I share my screen?
Yes, it should be good now.
Perfect. So very high level diagram architect. I'm not a systems architect, so please excuse my skills. But essentially what we're envisioning is 3 to 4 layers, let's call them, or components of this system, where we have microservices. So a microservice could be like a blockchain explorer where transaction data is monitored and exported. Maybe the deep funding portal where we know all the different proposals are being inputted, engagement happens over there. Maybe a social media data collector where we can kind of monitor the behavior of our community in our Discord channels, on our X, or on our Zoom calls, whatever. Maybe the new community portal. So whatever service that could provide data that would enhance the voting weight would go into these microservice layer. And then we want like a data center. It could be either like a very simple database, or for more complex interactions, maybe a knowledge graph. And so on these microservices, what we're envisioning, and this is all open for feedback and input, is at each microservice, there could be a configuration that happens there for how, for example, they can configure an output that's relevant to this calculation. So for example, for the blockchain explorer, that we could have an algorithm that's built into that microservice that outputs relationship between different wallets or transaction history when it comes to AJAX, whatever we think is relevant. And then that goes into the data center. And then we have a user interface where and I'm going to talk about the deep funding use case, but as a deep funding program manager, for example, I can go into that UI. I can look at all the different data sources that are available for me with all the outputs, and then I can kind of assign weights. And then based on that, get my voting weight output or reputation score, whatever score I'm trying to configure, and then view or export it or whatnot. And this is very basic for now, but obviously can be advanced. And then obviously there's the question of how does this all tie in from an identity perspective? How do we link those data sources together? How do we make sure that one voting weight is unique to one person? And so this is another question that we wanted to discuss. So this is high level what we're going with, the direction we're taking with this system. And then obviously the overarching thing is it needs governance and a feedback layer for how it would continue to be updated and advanced and governed in the future. So I'll stop right here just for any questions or comments. Maybe Jan or Igor, anyone, if you want to input something that I forgot. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so first of all, I can't wait to see this getting realized. I think if we get here, then we really have a solid foundation that we can continue to build upon and analyze, and that would really be a very cool playing ground. So I think what can be emphasized in this, two things can be emphasized in this sketch, and of course it's a very conceptual thing, so that's quite all right. So you see that data comes in from the services into a data layer. And I think what you could add is also an arrow that goes out again with the calculated reputations on different dimensions. You can have multiple reputations. The interesting thing there would be that outgoing reputation could also, again, be an entry point for somebody else. So if you have an outgoing reputation in deep funding, for instance, then Cardano Catalyst could use that as an incoming data point for their own reputation system, just as a matter of example. So that's one thing. And the other thing that we briefly touched upon when we discussed this is that the blockchain explorer. So what we are doing in Deep Funding, we have a wallet connection tool where multiple wallets can be connected to one ID. And that ID would be the unique identifier across multiple data sources if you connect it to that data source. So in Deep Funding portal, we would connect a wallet ID to your Deep Funding avatar or personality or whatever. And then the system could know that certain voting behavior and certain behavior on the platform would be from the same person, even not knowing who that person would be. So on that blockchain explorer, that would probably also indeed, as you're doing right now, be connected to the decentralized identity, because the decentralized identity would probably be part of the wallet linking tool as an additional option. And that way we would be able to ensure that different identities in the platform also belong to different people and are not actually the same person. So, but the components here are right, and yeah, we can expand. If we have this, we can expand with multiple services and data streams, whatever we can think of.
Great, thanks, Jan. Yeah, and initially, so the goal would be to have microservices that are, existent within Deep Funding maybe, but then the goal is to really allow for external services that potentially gather relevant information. So, for example, if you have a tool that's already built to monitor and gather social media behavior, and that could easily be plugged into the Deep Funding ecosystem, for example, then that could be a service that could be utilized. So it's not necessary that all the microservices need to be built from the ground up for this use case, but maybe existing services could plug into this system quite easily. And this is kind of what we want to discuss, like how can we build an architecture that allows for something like that? What are the components or modules that should be a part of an architecture like this right off the bat? So this is actually a question, and I can't really see everyone on the screen, but if you have maybe an idea or an answer or anything, that would be really great. So like an example would be, obviously there's going to need to be maybe at the beginning a one-way API, but then maybe later two-way APIs. Maybe there's just supposed to be standards. And the other thing that I really want us to get out of this as well is, like, as we know in Deep Funding, there's the RFP design process, and then there's the RFP development where you actually built on an RFP. What components do you think should be very strictly highlighted right off the bat that need to be developed, and what are things that could be defined as more of like a continuous RFP design? So I'm imagining we need to give very clear standards for API inputs and outputs maybe. And what other components would you guys think are important for this? If anyone has an answer.
Yeah, I'll wait a moment because I'm very interested to hear if anybody from the community would like to comment on this and has some ideas. If you think it's a good idea, what kind of think of services as input for a calculations score, and the way that service is created is to be determined. I can also imagine that it's a simple CSV upload or something. But what kind of things do you think would be useful for calculating a reputation score, for instance, could be an interesting question.
Right. Yeah. What other microservices or data would you think is important, so we can maybe add it to the list of microservices that we can create RFPs for, or maybe go out and do some market research for existing services? And not to put you on the spot, Alfonso, I know you're working on something similar within Hyperledger. If you have any idea, or if you want to tell us about your solution and how you envision it fitting into a system like this.
Thank you for putting me on the spot. Yeah, I'll be glad to talk about it. We're doing something that relates to what you're doing, and maybe we can have synergy. What we're doing is called learning tokens. It's a process to tokenize education, not as credentials and digital certificates that are always given at the end of a learning process, but as a complement for the process itself. So the idea is the moment knowledge is transmitted, and that transmission is evaluated, and the acquisition is confirmed, then a token is created and transferred to a skill wallet that is unique for the learners. So in this way, teachers can know what has been learned and who learned it. Learners can have their data for the process, not just at the end of the process, but for the whole process. So let me give you an example. Digital certificates are like financial statements of a company, okay, at the end of a term. Learning tokens are like the transactional records for the accounting of a company. So one processes the transaction, the other one certifies the state of the result at the end. So that's what we have been working at. We came up together with the token taxonomy framework of the Global Blockchain Business Council. Last year, we came up with 4 tokens. One token registers attendance. Another token registers the score for the learner, and that is defined by the instructor. There's also another score token, which is from the learner to the instructor. So there can be an evaluation, assessment of both ways, of teaching and of learning. And the 4th token is a token of engagement in the process, or the help that one provides during the education. This year, we're doing our first user case, and that is with Hyperledger itself. We now have evolved into what is called the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. Hyperledger and some other, I call them sisters, because in Spanish, foundation is a feminine noun. So the Linux Foundation is our mother, and we have a sorority of foundations called Linux Foundation's Decentralized Trust. And so we are, for instance, connecting learning tokens to Zoom. So we have an SDK, okay, with APIs, so that whomever attends a Hyperledger meeting from a community, okay, the organizer of that event can know who attended, and they can have quizzes if they want to test the transmission of some ability, capacity, ability, skill. They can also have polls to rate the presenters. And also, we are going to track through the Q&A section and the chat threads of conversations, questions, solutions. So that's what we're doing. And what you explained is extremely interesting, because basically you're trying to, which I love it, you're trying to codify behavior and recognize that behavior in such a way that a reputation can be built. that reputation should be recorded in a trustful way, okay? And that reputation, it's an evolving asset, as Jan said quite rightly. And whatever my reputation asset is here might be used for some other process of creating reputations. So changing what has to be changed, rather than transmission of knowledge, what we, if you allow me to use the we here, no, or you, what we are trying to do is to assess a certain behavior. Okay. And in that sense, I think there are plenty of common points that we would be delighted to work with you.
Super. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, I think, the direction that's intended with this is to how to capture behavior or interaction or contribution in various ways, and not just quantitatively, but qualitatively as well. So, I mean, when a system like this evolves, it's definitely needs to be in a place that services like yours can easily plug into it and provide its like its services essentially and its data. So thank you for that. That was very interesting. And so then maybe like a second guiding question would be, for a system like this, obviously there's the very big question, and Jan always probes us about this, is what's privacy versus transparency for something like this. And this is just to keep in mind, as obviously while we're creating the RFPs and we're deciding on the next set of requirements, this is something that needs to be kind of laid out right at the beginning, or at least in the back of everyone's mind. So from everyone's experience, how would you handle the whole privacy versus transparency for something like this?
In our case, we use Hyperledger Basu. Hyperledger Basu is a framework that comes from an alliance, Consensus, and Hyperledger. Hyperledger always worked and began working only with enterprise blockchains, blockchains that are private by nature. But there are a lot of other blockchains, the public blockchains that have their value and their importance. So Basu is hybrid. You can keep part of the blockchain in a private registry and keep part in the public domain. So what we're doing is, in terms of institutions, like academic institutions, all the data about the institution, the instructors, the courses, the scoring guides, which are our oracles. And that those oracles are something that you have in the lines in your graph that I'm looking at my screen, from the microservices to the other blocks. Those data plus the data of the students is private, okay? The wallets are public, okay? And so, but they're public as a verifiable credential, where the student has the control of what to show to whom and when, okay? For easy of deployment, we're using Kaleido. Okay, Kaleido is blockchain as a service. And not only they're members of the foundation, but also they have a custodial wallet. Some people may not like custodial wallets, but what we found in our pilot project is that many of the newbies for Web3 have difficulties even setting up a MetaMask wallet. Okay, so a custodial wallet is very simple. And given the fact that we're not dealing with currencies of money, in fact, we're dealing with a currency of expertise. We're dealing with a currency of talent, which has a value for different things, but it doesn't have a value in itself. So because of that, in this case, not having the keys is having your coins. Okay. So that's what we do. Basu, and a custodial wallet.
Thank you for that. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or input?
Yeah, Joanna, I did drop one in the chat. I don't know if it was seen
Sorry,
there.
my screen's all over the place. Let me check. Do you have a way to look up the social? Oh yeah. So Alfonso, they're just asking if there's a link to the services that you were just discussing.
Yeah, brilliant one, Alfonso. Just thinking about how we can apply the fundamental operational elements of what you just described to maybe some certain non-blockchain use cases. So maybe if we could, or someone else could have a look at it. I would like to have a look at it, You're muted, please. You're muted.
Yes, I'm an old version of the mail hardware, and my version does not come with multitasking. Okay, which originally, the ladies have always been better than us, and the new male versions, as yourself, can do multitasking now. But allow me for a second to get the links into. I'll put them in the chat.
Thank you so much. I'd really appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Anyone
Alfonso,
else?
I'm also interested in this for industrial training and first responder training scenarios. So I've contacted you on chat and I'll follow up afterwards. Thank you.
Certainly. We think it applies to academic, learning and development and corporate training. It applies of learning by yourself. And it also applies like what you're doing for anything that needs to be, any behavior that needs to be measured. Okay.
Super. Thank you. Andrea?
Awesome, thank you. I was going to weigh in, Alfonso. I love that you are working on that project. I know that one of the most valued kinds of reputation that came out in a prior workshop was around expertise. And we've been talking about like, oh, it'd be great to do that, but we have no mechanism yet to measure that. So knowing that there might be a microservice available into the system that could capture that is incredibly valuable. Juana, I love seeing this structure out and the way it's described. You asked about sort of, is it working for like other kinds of reputation systems? I think that's great. Here at RNDAO and in a Together crew, we're thinking in terms of mechanisms of measuring community strength and community cohesion and how well people are integrated in. And I think that the microservice, this structure is going to serve that well. The adding in, I'm curious actually from the rest of the community if they were going to list out where they participate in the SNET community. Where is that? There's Mattermost, we need to add that. How much of it happens on X? How much of it happens, even in these meetings? So that layering of knowing where does the communication happen, I think is an interesting conversation that we should sort of pile up. Where does it go? But yes, awesome work. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Andrea. Jan?
Yeah, Andreas just said the most important thing. So what I like about your work, Andrea, is that you really focused on different reputations. I think that's one thing that we need to be very clear about here. If we are talking about reputation or contribution scores or engagement scores or whatever, it's not one-dimensional. As a person, also in real life, I have many dimensions. I could be a great auto mechanic and a very awful cook or whatever, or vice versa. So that should also be part of inherent of this system. So one person can have multiple ratings on multiple dimensions and even different ratings on the same dimension in different contexts, for instance. So two things here. First of all, I think if we make this platform, even if it's initially targeted at the use case of deep funding, we should try and make it very flexible. So to have a use case like Alfonso's here that uses Hyperledger and different blockchains than we're used to and custodial wallets and so on, I think that's actually great because that forces us to think about a flexible architecture and a flexible structure that already is able to also encapsulate use cases like that one. Also, the same goes for decentralized identity. So it is a big block here, and it's also important. But the way I would see it being used in deep funding and maybe in SingularityNET more as an optional thing. So you have a collection of wallets, and you have an ID, and based on that, you can get some kind of rating in certain contexts. However, if you add to that a kind of identification, a certain identification method, and that gives us more evidence that you're only in the system once and that you're not duplicated with multiple wallets, then based on that knowledge, we could give you a higher weight in certain voting processes, for instance.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that if you don't want to use that identification method, that you're out. It will just mean that that your vote might have a different weight or your opinion or whatever. So yeah, I think these things help us to set this up in a really flexible way. And I can also imagine some moment in the future, if this system would be successful and multiple projects would be onboarding on the platform, each with their own rules and their own data. Maybe some will use each other's data. That at some point there might be a kind of rating on the data that comes out based on where the inputs come from. So certain data could have a very high reliability factor, while other could be low. It could even determine on be different for the person you're asking. So yeah, just to paint a really long-term picture that will probably be 5 years in the future or something. But yeah, there's a lot to go on here. But flexibility, I think, is key.
Absolutely. Rafael, I know you had your hand up, but I know Alfonso put his finger up. So, Alfonso, if you wanted to respond.
Yes, Jan, what we do with the tokens regarding the different abilities that we might learn, okay, is we have metadata, two important fields of metadata. Fields of knowledge, but also taxonomy of skills, so that you can combine the skills with the knowledge, okay? And
that would be so wonderful. That is absolutely marvelous. And you know, that would be also something that would be of very generic value for anybody plugging into this system, because everybody wants to know what people's skills and knowledge and expertise is in a certain area. So yeah, that would be massively useful. So it would be a great asset for this platform.
There are very important work in terms of skills. Fields of knowledge have been more standardized by educational departments all over the world. We began in the US, so we are using the Department of Education CIP codes. But you know, Mexico has its own. So those fields of knowledge are more or less structured. Skills are going under a lot of taxonomy work. Okay. A very interesting one I just came across is called, and they're just beginning, but they call it, I love the name, the Open Skill Genome. Okay, so what they're trying to do is trying to identify all the bits and pieces that form this genome. So what we're doing is that metadata is open. So we began with those, with the Department of Education and with the World Economic Forum taxonomy of skills for education for level. But anyone can come and say, listen, I want to use this taxonomy or that taxonomy. So everyone is welcome. So we will enrich the taxonomies available.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I had a conversation with Joanna very recently on whether we should have knowledge graphs and when we should have databases. And yeah, if you have complex relational data of one person being related to multiple skills and maybe to other people with other skills, or a complex relation between knowledge and skills, etc., and that connected with certain interactions, yeah, that could give you a very rich profile. And then we can move away from that awful vision of where everybody is just graded and you're a 6 and you're a 7. No, it becomes really complex. And depending on the context and your current need, you can ask the right questions to get the right people or the right answers or whatever, or give the right weight to people's opinion, for instance, based on this complex set of metadata. So yeah, for such a use case with such complex data, a knowledge graph seems to me could be very, very useful. So
we're just beginning. We're just beginning. Okay. No, but it's our third year. Okay. But we're just beginning. We're barely scratching. And
yeah,
completing.
There's no end to the kind of data and insights you can get out of that. For instance, I can imagine based on that data, you can also get insights on what kind of learner somebody is, if he's a visual or textual, if he's very fast or very associative or very focused and targeted, or and all to the benefit of people. Because if you have a good idea of how I operate, then the chances that I will add value and be productive in an area that makes me happy is just higher, I would say.
Yes, and it opens up the opportunity of learning paths. No, your path, my path. It might cross here, but it might lead us to different paths. And so it's, well, I'm here and I'll be more than happy to work together.
That will be absolutely marvelous. Yeah, I see a very interesting future if we can all collaborate on one system like this. Really interesting.
Rafael, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to give some insights, very general insights compared to the deep conversations we are having here. But in the focus on the platform, I just wanted to say that I think it's very important for it to be a little bit modular, so that you can start with a few services that are maybe the low-hanging fruit, and then as you have other things to be able to input them as well. But at the same time, once the data is available in the platform, to be able to interact with the data, maybe do some work in combinations with the different sources if possible. I also think, as you have there already, being able to play with the reputation system, let's say, and attribute different weights to different things at each point in time is also something very important to have. And in terms of identity and privacy, I think it's very important to keep the identity of people safe, more in the sense of not being able to directly identify that, I don't know, I have these wallets, this is my voting power, this is my reputation, and then someone comes talking to me and tell me, hey, you have to vote on this or do this, and you can have all kinds of confusions. So you can have some transparency, maybe with some pseudonymity for people or something like that, where you don't reveal who is who, but maybe they can see the transactions in the background. Yeah, and that's all as a summary.
Thank you, Rafael. That's very great input. Ken, did you have a question?
Yeah, a few things that catch my mind in terms of the long-term project I have to support learning and employability for neurodivergent individuals is the idea first that this could support the idea of spiky profiles, which were mentioned. We're particularly good at one thing and not so good at another. And the anonymity would be important as well for someone who's perhaps in a professional capacity and wants to keep their diagnosis quiet, but also level up their skills and work in areas of their own knowledge and experience that are perhaps less exercised in this kind of situation. So I see real potential to try and incorporate this into my projects.
Great. Yeah, I mean, this kind of also leads me to, and I don't know how much more time we have here, Rafael, so I won't take too much time. So the next question is really around, obviously the system is going to be open source. And because we want it to be open source, we want it to be open to many other people that think they can contribute services that would be, would add data to this growing knowledge graph that's going to give us a lot of input on how to really measure influence within an ecosystem, or how to really like give different scoring for different votes or whatever else the use case may be. In your opinion, for whoever worked within an open source environment or an open ecosystem, how does governance and maintenance of such a system look like? Are there any recommendations for how you could maintain such a system? Something Jan mentioned could be a possibility would be maybe like a long-term RFP where someone's tasked to maintain it over X amount of time, or maybe within SingularityNET, a specific group are responsible for it. But I just wanted to ask the question to any of you guys if you have any other ideas around, other than good documentation and everything kind of being very available for whoever takes this on next or wants to update it. But are there anything that would be important for us to keep in mind?
I can say just that I think it's very, for example, if we keep it open and modular and people can come and introduce their own data sources and their services, I think it's very important to have a system that kind of verifies the quality of this data somehow and analyzes it, because if not, it's gonna be easy to play with the whole system for individuals. So yeah, the best way to do that, that's a good question. I don't have the answer for it yet.
Right. I think the next, maybe a next discussion would be around like what does maintenance for this look like? What are the different tasks that are required, whether it's analysis of the data, whether it's regularly making sure it's updated, and then maybe once we outline all of these different needs, we can see whether we started off within the deep funding program that it's maintained, or figure that out together, I guess. My next thing that when everyone's talking and Alfonso and Jan were having that conversation, I think it could be very interesting for us to, and whether it's the decentralized identity piece or whether it's a service that is some sort of a wallet where you, and very relevant to what Alfonso was saying, like if your scores are, you can own your scores, for example, you can revoke them if you need to. I think this, or with your data in the knowledge graph, from the privacy and transparency perspective, whether you can have control over if your data is removed or updated or inputted, or do any of you have any ideas how that is something that could be built within this? Alfonso?
Yes, there are a lot of experience being gathered at different places. For instance, in terms of credentials for education, MIT has a digital credentials consortium, and they are working with a group called the Credential Engine. Basically, what they're doing is they're building a registry of trust. And that registry of trust is the central component to do all the things you mentioned.
With this registry, in our world today, could it potentially be a DAO? Yeah, and I had a very brief discussion a while back about what if a DAO was to govern this system and make sure how data is inputted and outputted. And is that something that could be done? Okay.
Yeah, and that could be a technology to use for the governance of the registry of trust.
Okay, very interesting. Awesome. Well, let me check if I have anything else. Well, I'll open the floor for any feedback, questions, comments. I don't want to take too much time. I think this conversation was very insightful and there's a lot to unpack. But do any of you have any questions or feedback for us before we continue? I definitely want to continue having these conversations as we kind of design the RFP, or at least one of them, or decide on the next steps for it. Maybe we can come back and have a more in-depth conversation about that specific proposal. But for now, do any of you have any comments, questions, thoughts, feedback? Is everyone excited, worried? How's everyone feeling about this?
Encouraged.
Okay.
I think this is really interesting. The facets of it and the fact that, as you mentioned, could be modular as well.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for your input. Alfonso, thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to meet you, and everyone, thank you for your input and your time. We'll definitely keep you guys posted on the progress of this, but I appreciate all your input. And Jan, thanks again for your guidance. Couldn't do anything without you, so appreciate it.
Joanna, thank you and the other FOTREC members for all the hard work you've done in putting this together. It really looks terrific.
Joanna, I do have a question. For the RFP, are you thinking of keeping, is the RFP just to develop the platform and then onboarding of data and services, microservices will be later? Or is the onboarding of microservices something for now, right? And if it is it open to us proposing, or do you have idea of the initial data streams or microservices you'd like to onboard?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We're still having a little bit of internal discussions around the direction of that. Definitely the microservice architecture part of it is the first part of this. So maybe like a combination of the microservice architecture and the user interface. Or maybe it'll be a couple RFPs. We might put out an RFP to also research the decentralized identity aspect, as Jan suggested. But some microservices that we think would be very relevant for now is like a blockchain explorer, for example. So in the new algorithms that were proposed, there is a part of it that looks at transaction data. So when do community members buy and sell their AGIX? How often, how long do they hold them? What's the interaction there, and how that could be relevant into your voting weight, for example. So some service to monitor transactions on the blockchain could be really helpful for calculating voting weight. So that's a service that we're looking for. Maybe the proposal portal data exports, so the engagements on the proposal portal, that's another service. Maybe we can even find, so maybe Together Crew could be another use case for a service that could input into this. So these are kind of high level what we're thinking, but yeah, Jan, did I miss anything? Igor, Barry?
You did splendidly, Joanna. What I think, Rafael, is that so as for splitting RFPs, I think we need to make sure that the first product that comes out is one consistent product that we can test. So if one person would make the layer with all the algorithms, another one would make a database or something, I don't know. Another one would make the UX, and a third one would make a service. And then after, I don't know, X months, we need to find out how this all fits together. Even if you make an architecture that describes all the requirements, that would be tricky. So I think I would prefer to have the core parts being done by a single team that can really test and integrate and tweak and make sure that all the important parts fit together very well, and document that in such a way that others can build upon it. So I imagine the first iteration of this service will come with 2 or 3 or well, at least 2 microservices for data. But as you know, maybe in Deep Funding Round 4, we had 2 RFP design proposals awarded, both for the reputation system. And that is actually perfect right now, because one of the teams, VoteRec, could be making an RFP that includes the architecture, while the other team can already create a number of additional data services that are directed to something else. So R&DAO could make a data service, a microservice, connected more to social media, for instance, which would normally not be part of what VoteRec would be doing. I can also imagine other parts, like the reporting part, that could be completely separate. The system could output some data, and then at some point we could leave it to others to make a nice module that creates nice reports or visualization of that data, for instance. So yeah, the architecture should be very flexible. First of all, for inputs, but maybe also in certain parts so that they can be improved. But yeah, the basic architecture of this will be very important. It needs to be scalable, and it needs to be performing, and it needs to be adaptable. So yeah, I really hope that we can find a wizard software architect to help us set that up, and also to help us assess hopefully all the proposals that are coming in for this RFP.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jan.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Let's then move to the last topic in the agenda, the community website presentation by AO. AO, please take it over.
All right. Thank you so much, Joanna. And thank you, Rafael. So I will just share my screen right away. I've also put the link to the website in the chat, so that if you want to view along with me, you can just do that. Yeah, I hope you can see my screen now.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. I'll just believe that once you are seeing it, everybody else can. So, so this is the community website, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do, hold us together as a community. And of course, I mean, this is MVP, right? There's still going to be a couple of more things to come on. In fact, there are a lot of things in the background that we cannot share yet. But what we have right now is already quite interesting. We want to have a website where everyone is kept within the loop. All right, community members, SACCO members, SACCO coordinators, people who are coming to the Deep Funding Committee for the first time, or people generally just came around. And if you get on the website, our plan is that this website is able to show you around, get to know us, get to know what we're all about, get to know SACCOs, get to know about the DF team. I mean, we want you to come to this site and then be able to know without having to look forward to maybe Rafael at the next town hall to explain in 3 minutes of this first presentation, you know. So this is the landing page, pretty fine, as you can see. And then right now we're having the DF number 46 town hall, but right after us, there will be the LATAM town hall. And that's why you can see it on the screen as upcoming events. Naturally speaking, you can just view or reserve slots, and this brings you here. So you can easily join because it's on Google Meet and you can join, but I'm not going to go there. I'll just come back to here. And then you can check out and present. If you have something to present in LATAM Town Hall, you can come here and then book your presentation. If Joanna had shared a presentation with us earlier, I was asking Rafael, we would have put Joanna's presentation there, but I mean, that's the plan, all right? So that, I mean, without having to reach Jan or myself or Rafael, you can simply come on the website and say, okay, I have something to present. I'm an awarded team. I have achieved a milestone I would like to present. Sometimes maybe just even a challenge or anything, you can come here and present. And so that's what this is supposed to do for us. We can come here, book your event, very easy. Now, to the circles, you can see on my screen, we have all the circles listed here, even data analytics circle, which is which is very new, which is like the younger sister of the event circle, is right here represented. You can see deep funding staff, the dev outreach, and all of it up to the focus group. Now, if you click on any of these circles, it should give you information about the circles. Complete information up till the very last series of reports that they have. So for example, let me just check. I'm sure we're all interested in deep funding staff. So if I just click the deep funding staff, it will bring you to the deep funding staff page. And right here, I'm scrolling, I hope you can see, you have basically description about and I don't want to spend so much time here, but you can see description, pretty much clear. The same thing, if you had clicked on review circle, you'd have seen the description for them. On focus group, you'd have seen the description for them. So if you are coming here for the very first time, you know exactly what focus group does. You know exactly what event circle is all about. And then you can see links to their reports. Now, if you know what they are all about, but if you check their results, you know what they've achieved in the past couple of months. In fact, from the year, at least half of the year report is already in. And we want circles to be able to write about stuff. Sometimes it's not just about what they are doing. Sometimes it could also be what they are thinking. It could be some research. It could be just anything. And that's why we have the blogs. And so for everybody, for every circle, if you're a member of circle, you can write blogs for your circle. Coordinators can write blogs. And most interestingly, which are something that I will show when I go to the blogs, is that we have avenue for circles to have a talent bank, right? So if, for example, you come to the event circle, you're going to have something that says, we are looking, if you would like to join, see, apply now. It gives you options to join if you're interested in joining any of the circles. And then we have open applications, right? So even when we are not recruiting in a sense, there's still option of people showing interest. And I think this is a very good way for circles to know how engaged people are with what they are doing. And then that could be some very good metrics. You can see Rafael's beautiful fine face. You can see Victor with the peace sign saying hi, hi to you on the screen. I like this particular part of the pages because people, we have people with their pictures and quite nice. And then we can see the events, all of the events here. Upcoming events, you have the LATAM Town Hall, you have DF All Hands, up till end of the quarter. Now, the idea obviously is that you can come here, book slot, you can come here, have these events to your calendar. You can also come here to know what topics are being discussed. And if you want to present, it's very easy for you to come here to put in to get a slot for your presentation. And finally, something that we find to be very, very important, it's the previous event, the community blog, notifications, news, and then if you come down on the landing page here, you will be able to see previous events. Sometimes people, don't attend because of, unavailably absent, and then they can come here to check for the past events, and they're able to watch videos, catch up, download presentations from those events, and that way, whether it's in the present, whether it's in the future, whether it's in the past, we're able to capture time in a very beautiful capsule for you. And right now, the name of the capsule is the community.deepfunding.ai website. And that brings me to the end of this presentation. What I'm particularly interested in, which we discussed at last town hall, was feedback. Have people gone through the site? What do they think? Here is the view of the calendar. You can always change the views. This here is basically the the event by their descriptions. And then here is how they line up on the calendar. So we would like to know if you've gone through the website, what you think, suggestions, things that you think Kenneth, thank you, that you think could be added, things that you thought, oh, okay, I was expecting to see this, I have not seen this. I think this would be a very good time to have that. Thank you, guys.
Ayo.
So what do you guys think?
Yeah, me. Could you open the marketing
Yes.
circle page, please?
Which of the circle?
The marketing circle.
All right.
So if you go down a little bit, this text is a little bit long. So here you can see what I said before. No, up, the job thing. A little bit up. Yeah. So looking for diverse marketing talent, that's what I mentioned at the beginning of the town hall. So here you see the three roles that we're looking for, potentially filled by multiple people. And you see an apply button, and maybe you can click it, Ayo. Now we won't go through all the steps here. You need to put a little bit of effort in to get into the circles. But here there's a guided process with a number of steps where you can add some of your information and tell us why you're interested in a certain role. And yeah, that's also a new and very important part of this this website. And mentioning it here and showing it here because it's very important to have the right people in our circles. So if you know anybody or maybe want to apply yourself for one of these roles, of course, the same conditions apply to as for all our circle members. But then please click the button and apply. And also this form, you know, the funny thing with these websites is and any project maybe, when you're working on it, you always see the things that are not perfect yet. So I see all the things that are not perfect yet, but I'm hopeful that from your perspective, when you see this for the first time, you will see, and you can remove this this screen, or go back to the homepage or whatever. But that you will see the things that are already there because you have a fresh view. But as I was pointing out, this is an MVP. We have a number of things in our mind that we really would like to have added or have changed or have improved. And to be honest, we've been working on our Deep Funding website for almost 2 years right now, and I still have it with that website also. I know that next thing that I want to have there, and a little bit awkward, it's not there yet. So, but yeah, looking forward to your feedback and would love to hear what you're missing, what you want to have added, and how we can improve. And hope to see you all there from time to time. Joanna.
No, I just want to say thank you for putting this together. I know I bombarded Rafael and many others with so many questions, and they're like, just wait for the community website. So I'm very happy that it's coming together. And also just relating it to our previous conversation, like this is data that could potentially be very important to gather. So it's good to see that it's already being done because it's definitely going to be helpful and go kind of full circle back into, you know, calculating scores and reputation, and maybe we can test it out as one of the first services. So yeah, this is super. Thank you.
Yeah, very good point. You're thinking data already. Very good. So yeah, so if we have presenters here, for instance, that's a data point that we could send to the blockchain. So if you are an awarded team and indeed you did 2 or 3 milestone presentations in town hall, maybe that could add to your reputation as a team, like you've been doing quite a few times, Joanna. So yeah, if we could capture that, that would be good for your reputation, I'm sure.
Henrik,
Thank you.
a good
Okay, please go
question
ahead.
in the chat. If
Oh
it's
yeah, I
possible
was
to
wondering, the
subscribe.
calendar looks nice. I was just wondering if there's a way to subscribe to it so I can have it right in my Google Calendar.
Yeah, so that's one thing we are
Okay.
researching a little bit. So there are two options. Either we will just make it manually and then just have the main things in there, but not details, or we will generate a Google Calendar, hopefully with multiple categories, so that, for instance, in Google, you can say, well, I am not interested in LATAM, but I am interested in the general town hall. So
Okay.
we want to have a good look at that and then do it properly, or have a manual one with just the basics. And if we do it properly, then in your calendar, you would also be able to see the exact theme and topic of each event and who is presenting, etc. So that would be the preferred way, but that might take a little bit of research.
Right.
But very good question, and something that is indeed important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also on a completely not related note, Joanna, we are also starting to get some metrics from the town hall, which are still manual, so not perfect. We might be useful, including like attendance, and we'll try to explore some more creative measures of participation, but everything will be in an Excel, so not great, but it's what is the best we can do right now with the tools we have. And yeah, and then there might be also other services and things, like I was working in a project, it's Deep Funding Academy, that's like a course, and then you get some certifications, not as good as Alfonso certifications, but certifications of acquiring a certain skill. Maybe that can be interesting as well.
Well, hopefully this is where this collaboration can come about.
And very, very soon, you could also use our APIs for Zoom. So if you hold your meetings in Zoom meetings, well, we're about to complete that part of our mentorship. We work with the mentorship program of Linux, which goes every year from June to November. So very soon, Joanna, you're welcome to use it.
Yeah, so we need to start building that platform so that we can plug in all those data services. We have some hurdles to take before we're there yet, I think. But yeah, good stuff.
Also, besides just feedback, if you guys feel there's something important, some feature or anything you'd like to see in Deep Funding that maybe could be added to the community website, that of course would be great to know as well, as we can put it in the roadmap for the future. I think the silence is telling us nobody has more feedback for now. But if you ever have it from using it, you know where to find us every day here in the town hall. Yeah, and do you want to say anything else?
So who are you addressing? Are you addressing me or what?
Yes, or Ayo as well. Ayo, you are unmuting yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's either we've done a very good, terrific job, or we've done a very bad job. So I'll be judging from the comment. I'll say we did a very good job.
Jan, do you have any last words?
I'm just reading the comments.
All right.
Well, I see a lot of hearts and thumbs up, so that's always nice. But yeah, keep watching it and come back from time to time, and we'll be improving. We're improving and adding stuff on a weekly basis. You know, there's always a reason to do this presentation the next week or the week after, but I think half a year from now we'll still be at that stage. So another thing that we want to be doing with this website is build also a separate subsite on decentralization and also one for the ambassadors. And then you have now a calendar on deep funding, but you would also have an aggregated calendar with all events across SingularityNET. So first we need to do a little bit more tweaking on this side, because otherwise we need to fix our errors on 3 sides instead of 1. But yeah, that's a next stage in this website development.
All right, everyone. So thank you so much. Thank you, Joanna and PhoTrack. Thank you, AO. I think it was a very nice town hall. I love the discussions. We all participated, and this is awesome. That's how it should be every week. So thank you for coming here. And yeah, I'll see you all again in 2 weeks. Don't forget also to give feedback to the changes in deep funding if you haven't yet. And next week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. UTC, we have Open All Lands, where you can just discuss governance, see the work that the circles have been doing, and interact with the community as well. So we hope to see you there as well. So thank you, everyone. Take care and have a great week.